Come close now. Settle in. This story begins, as so many dangerous ones do, with something very small. A mirror. Made by a devil, a particularly nasty sort of devil, who was terribly proud of it, because it had a special power. Whatever was good and beautiful, reflected in its surface, shrank to almost nothing. Whatever was ugly and broken, swelled up enormous and grotesque. Mountains became anthills. Kind faces became sneering ones. The world, seen through that glass, was a mean and diminished thing. Now, the devil's students decided to carry this mirror all the way up to heaven. Imagine the mischief they planned. But they dropped it. It shattered. Millions of splinters, sharp as needles, scattered across the whole wide world. And here is what frightened people most. If even one tiny sliver found its way into a human eye, or worse, into a human heart, everything warm inside that person would begin to freeze. In a city, cobblestones, rooftops, window boxes full of roses, two children lived so close to each other that they could reach across the gap between their attic windows and hold hands. Kay and Gerda. Oh, they were dear friends. In summer they sat together in the little roof garden among the rose bushes, and the roses smelled of everything good. In winter they pressed pennies against the frosted glass to melt peepholes and watch the snowflakes fall. Kay once said, peering through his little melted circle, that snowflakes were like living creatures. And he was right, in a way. He was a curious, bright boy. Gerda was softer, warmer, the kind of child who said a quiet prayer over every small thing she loved. They were, in that simple and complete way children sometimes are, each other's whole world. Which is why what came next was so very terrible. One winter afternoon, a splinter from that broken mirror, one of the millions still drifting on the cold air, found Kay's eye. He blinked. He rubbed it. He said it was nothing. But from that moment, something shifted behind his gaze. The roses on the roof seemed gaudy, excessive. Gerda's stories seemed childish. His grandmother, reading aloud by lamplight, seemed foolish. He became sharp-tongued and clever in a cruel way, the kind of clever that finds flaws in everything and warmth in nothing. And then, some weeks later, another splinter, smaller, quieter, slipped into his heart. His heart went cold as a stone in January. He didn't notice. That is the worst of it. He didn't notice at all. Gerda noticed. She watched him and waited and hoped he would come back to himself. But he only grew colder, and the winter that year seemed to last, and last, and last. She came on the coldest night of the year. Kay was in the square with the other boys, tying his little sled to passing carriages, for sport. You know how boys do. When the largest sleigh he had ever seen swept through, white as bone, silent as snowfall. He tied his sled to it, not thinking. The sleigh carried him faster and faster, out of the city, out past the last lamppost, into the open dark countryside. And then the driver turned. A woman, tall and luminous, wrapped in white fur, her face like carved ice, beautiful and absolutely still. She said in a voice like a bell heard from very far away that he must be cold. She wrapped her cloak around him. He felt no more cold after that. He felt no more much of anything. He forgot Gerda. He forgot the roses. He forgot the warm circle of lamplight in his grandmother's room. The Snow Queen's palace waited ahead, glittering in the dark. When Kay did not come home, people said the river had taken him. They mourned. But Gerda did not believe it. She felt him still somewhere out in the world. And so, in the first breath of spring, she put on her best red shoes and went to the river herself and asked it, quietly and seriously, as only a child can, to give Kay back. The river didn't answer with words. It answered by carrying her away in a little boat along the current, away from everything she knew. That is how Gerda's journey began. Not with a plan, not with a map, with love, which is its own kind of navigation. She traveled through an enchanted garden where a kind old woman made the roses hide underground, so Gerda would forget and stay. For even gentle magic can be a cage. But summer came regardless, and the roses rose, and Gerda remembered, and she ran on. The world was wide and strange, and not always kind to a small girl traveling alone. She met a crow who told her of a prince, and her heart leapt. But the prince was not Kay. The prince and princess were gentle souls who gave her warm clothes and a fine carriage, but the carriage was taken by robbers in a dark forest. A little robber girl with wild eyes and a warm reindeer kept her captive, then, in a moment of rough grace, let her go. The reindeer, Bay, carried her north to Lapland, then to Finland, where a wise woman with no paper wrote all of Gerda's story in dried fish and sent her on. Everyone who helped her said the same thing, in their own fashion. This child carries something extraordinary. Not a weapon, not a charm, only her love. Her plain, stubborn, breathless love. And that, said the Finnish wise woman softly, is enough. The Snow Queen's palace was vast and hollow and unutterably beautiful. Every hall was carved from ice that never melted, lit by the northern lights in colors that had no names. And in the largest, emptiest hall of all, Kay sat alone on the frozen floor, moving pieces of ice around and around, trying to arrange them into a word. The word was eternity. The Snow Queen had told him that if he spelled it, he would be his own master and she would give him the whole world. So he worked, and the ice clicked softly under his fingers, and he felt nothing. Not cold, not loneliness, not the faintest ghost of memory. Reason without feeling. That is what the mirror shard does, you see. It makes the mind very sharp and the heart very quiet. He was like a clock with a beautiful face and no warmth inside it. Just the ticking. Just the endless, frozen ticking. And then Gerda walked in. She had crossed the tundra alone, in biting wind, her fine clothes long gone, and she was half frozen herself. But she walked straight to Kay and threw her arms around him, and held him, and wept. Hot tears. Real tears. They fell on his chest, on his closed face, and they melted into him, and the shard in his heart loosened and shifted and washed out with her weeping. Kay blinked. He looked up, and something behind his eyes came back. He burst into tears himself then, deep shaking ones, and wept the sliver from his eye too. He looked at Gerda, really looked, and whispered her name. Just her name. And Gerda laughed and cried at once, and even the pieces of ice on the floor danced and spelled eternity by themselves, because Kay was free. They walked home together in the long gold light of summer morning, hand in hand. Two children grown a little older, coming home to the roses